A reader lives 1,000 lives before he dies. The man who never reads lives only one. So says George R. R. Martin, and when we think of it, what a profound thought it is. A reader sails on his magic carpet of words through the arabesque of times and places, peeking into the lives of people long gone by and glimpsing into the crystal ball of future. A life full of many adventures of lifetimes, history, passions, emotions, and characters, and hence, we at Bal Bharati Public School, Noida, celebrate reading as a continuous process through this reading week. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Bal Bharati Noida is a member school of Child Education Society, which is dedicated to provide quality education and turn out future-ready and ethically sound citizens of the world. For almost 30 years, Bal Bharati Public School Noida has crossed many a milestone in its journey of education and will continue to do so, for education as a process is never ending. We feel libraries are the nurseries for the growth of young minds. We constantly and frequently nurture this nursery with addition of books. We are also working on digitization of our school library. We also ensure that students visit book fairs, have memberships with other libraries like British Council Library, and have established international bookmark exchange program with countries like Croatia, Dubai, Portugal, and many more schools of Middle East and Europe. Exercise is to the body, is reading is what to the mind. We have a reading club which tries to encourage a reading habit amongst our students. We try to turn readers into avid readers, like activities which include meeting the authors, wherein we also acquainted our students with authors of Pennsylvania. Activities that integrate sports, arts, character dramatization, and storytelling. The reading club is, so to say, the platform 9 3/2 to the Hogwarts of books. Here are the glimpses of the activities done by the reading club of our school. Here were some of the glimpses of the activities done by the reading club of our school. From time to time, we are privileged when people interested in the cause of education contributed by reading, join us even for a small time in order to share their valuable experience and add to the knowledge base of this school and its students. Today is one such occasion when we are joined by Miss Wendy Ghair as our guest speaker for the day. Miss Wendy has a master's degree in library sciences from San Jose State University and a bachelor's degree from University of North Carolina. She is an educator with experience of teaching students in library and in classroom and is passionate about reading. She is currently with the American Embassy School at Delhi since 2014. I extend a hearty welcome to Ms. Gair on behalf of Bal Bharti Parivar.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, students. I am so happy to be here and to see you all on screens here. What a warm welcome. I love the flags and I love the big smiles I'm seeing. Let me share my screen with you and I'll go ahead and begin. All right, I think everyone can see this today. Good morning, I am Wendy Ghair. I do work at the American Embassy School. Mr. Mistra, ma'am just told us a lot about me as a teacher and an educator, but I also am a mom and I have a child who is in grade 6 and a child who's in grade 4 here in Delhi. We've lived here for 8 years. So they've always been at school here in Delhi. And my husband is also a class 2 teacher here at our school. So in my family, we value education and we value reading, but I think that's probably the same as you all as well. So I'm going to get started. And let me go ahead and get to this next slide here. I have some goals today to share with you, and I have 3 goals while we work together today. The first goal is to talk about why reading is important. The second is to talk about what should we be reading. And the third is talking about taking ownership of your reading life. So we're going to go in that order today. I'll spend about 10 minutes on each section, and then we'll have some time at the end with some teacher resources as well. Let's begin. So, why is reading important? Let's read this quote. Stories affirm our experiences. They challenge our comfort zone. They give us space to hibernate and pull us out of our isolation when we need to be reminded we aren't alone. That's written by John Shu, who's also a teacher librarian. He's based in the United States. I love this, and this is one of the main reasons that reading is important here, I think. Stories entertain us. They give us a break from reality, and they kind of sweep us away. And it looks like you all do a lot of reading in that way at your own school. Looking at that video of the reading and the activities you're doing, you're being swept away in other experiences. I think that's grand. I think that's magical. So why is reading important? Let's think about this. Last night, I was sitting at my computer in my kitchen, and my son, who's in grade 6, came behind me and he saw this slide on my computer and he was joking with me and he said, "Mom, why is reading important?" And I turned the question back around to him and I said, "You tell me why reading is important." And you know, my son is an avid reader. He reads about an hour every day on his own. He loves to read. He devours books. But he didn't have a good answer for this. He couldn't think of an answer. And I thought, I wonder how many students don't really know why reading's important. We might do it because we're told to do it. And we might do it because we want to do it, but we don't know why. So let's explore some of these reasons. Reading entertains us. That's easy, right? It lets us be swept away to new lands. It gives us a break. Sometimes if things get hard in life, it's easy to go curl up with a book. It helps us maintain our language. We can read in any language that we can speak or read. My main language, my home language is English. I speak some Spanish, So I might read in Spanish sometimes, and that will help me develop my Spanish skills. But reading in English also helps me still, as an adult, develop my English skills. It lets us learn new things, and it helps us to keep good habits going. I love learning new things. I love embracing new ideas. If I don't know how to do something, I look up maybe even on my phone some directions and learn how to do that. That's still reading. And then good habits. Think about learning to ride a bike. It's hard to learn, but once you learn it, it's easy. And if you don't keep doing it, when you get to be old like me, will you be able to ride a bike as well? Probably not, right? So you want to keep doing it so that you continue to be good at it and it continues to be something that you enjoy. So reading can sweep us to other places, but I want to think a moment about these habits and these skills because reading supports us as learners as well. I want to take a look at a scenario with 3 students. We're going to take a look at this first student right here. This first student only reads 1 minute a day. The student does not enjoy reading, or the student doesn't have time to read. Maybe they're involved in after-school activities and homework and classes and other things. So they really only read 1 minute a day. In a school year that is 180 days, that student is only reading 180 minutes. That's not a lot. You want to know how much that is? That's only 3 hours in a whole school year. My friends, you probably could read 3 hours in 1 day. This student can only read 3 hours in 1 whole school year. That's only 8,000 words per year. And I found that number and I thought, I wonder what book is 8,000 pages. I had a very difficult time trying to find a book. I'm sorry, not 8,000 pages, 8,000 words. I had a very difficult time trying to find a book that was 8,000 words. Matilda, are you familiar with Matilda? Give me a thumbs up if you know this book. Yep, by Roald Dahl. This book is about 40,000 words. So 8,000 words is only about this much of the book. That is not a lot, is it? That's a very little amount in a whole school year. You probably read much more than this, don't you? So this student right here, when it comes time to take their standards and exams at the end of the year, they're only going to score in the 10th percentile because they don't have the vocabulary. They're not reading as many words as other students. Now, what does that mean, the 10th percentile? That means out of 100 students, this student is right here, only in the lowest 10 students of all the test takers. 90 students are doing better than them. That's a lot of students, right? So let's keep this in mind and let's take a look at another friend here. This friend reads 5 minutes a day. So 5 minutes a day, they're able to sit down. They come home from school, they grab their snack, they grab a book, and they sit down and read while they eat their snack. And then when they're done, they put their book down and they go play and they do homework and they do activities. Okay? We know they're going to read more words, more minutes, and they're probably going to score better. So let's find out. That student will read 900 minutes per school year. That's 15 hours in a school year, which is much more than our first student, right? Only 3 hours was the first student. This is much more. That's a lot of extra words. Look at how many words that is. 282,200 words per school year. So then I thought, I wonder what books have that many words in them. And do you know what I found out? There are some books with that many words in them, but for children's books usually have less. Remember, Matilda only had 40,000 words in it. This student is reading about the same amount as the first 3 Harry Potter books. Now that's a lot of reading. Look at how many pages that is. That's pretty good, right? You would give this kid a thumbs up and say, nice job, you're doing a lot of reading, okay? Now, how do you think this person is going to score on a test? Better or worse? What do you think? Show me with fingers. I think better. And I think 10th percentile for this other one, I think we're going to get higher. This student is going to score in the 50th percentile. That means they do better than half the students, but also the other half of the students do better than them. Now that's okay, right? That is certainly better than the first student, but we can do better, can't we? So let's take a look at my third friend here, okay? My third friend here reads 20 minutes a day, which means they go home, they do their maths, they do their language, they do their football practice, their cricket practice, and then they have dinner and wash up. And when they go to bed, they're reading for 20 minutes at bedtime, okay? Look at how many minutes per school year that is, 3,600 minutes per school year. That's 60 hours. That's a lot of hours. If you were reading 60 hours in a school week, you'd be reading all day, every day, pretty much. That's 1,800,000 words per year. Wow, look at the difference between this student and our first student. That's a huge, huge difference of words that they're reading. Well, if we know they're reading more words, how do you think their vocabulary is growing? It's going to be growing a lot, right? And that's going to result, in some higher test scores. Think of how many books this child is reading with 1,800,000 words. That's a lot of Harry Potter books, isn't it? That's a lot if you're doing the math. This student would score in the 90th percentile. That means out of 100 students taking a test, this student is one of the top students. That's a pretty big deal. It's not because they're studying. It's not because they're doing all of that. It's because they're reading and they're learning new words and they're thinking about the stories as they're reading and they're processing through all of that good information. And they're becoming stronger with their vocabulary and all of their literacy skills. Teachers, this was taken from a study done in 1987 by Nagy and Herman. If you want to Google that, it's a pretty famous study and there are some pretty powerful charts that I think a lot of parents often need to see how important that 20 minutes of reading a day is. Students, what do you think? Is it best to read 20 minutes a day or is it best to read 1 minute a day? I think this answer is easy, right? 20 minutes a day, and it's something you enjoy doing. So let's do it, right? Okay, so if we think back, we think of all the data we just saw, those 3 students, that might convince us that reading is important. Making time for reading will not only support our reading and our learning, but it can be fun too. Ultimately, we make a choice about why we read, right? Reading's important. Why are we reading? So some people do read to be entertained. Some people do read to learn new things. Maybe some people do read to maintain their language and improve their vocabulary. I want you to take a moment in your notebook. I want you to write down, why is reading important to you? Not to your parents, not to your teachers, but to you. Why do you like reading? So everyone's got your pencil, your pen, you've got your notebook. I want you to take a note and tell me why reading is important to you. I'm going to write down the same. Grab my notebook. Everybody should be writing right now. Tell me in your notebook why reading is important to you. I should see everyone's pens and pencils moving. while you're writing, my friends, I'm going to go back to this other slide so that you can see some of these other, let's see if I can do this. These other reasons here we listed. You might even take some of these as your reasons. You might like to learn new things. You might like to be entertained. That's something I like. I see some friends showing me their screens. Thank you so much. I love that. The vocabulary and learning new things. Great. Thank you. I see someone else there, so may I see yours? Nice. When we think about why things are important to us, it helps us put a value on them, and it helps us consider, why we want to do it, right? All right, let's go ahead and finish the sentence you're writing, my friends, and put eyes back up on here.
Wendy ma'am,
Yes.
should I read out why reading is important for me? Because I have also noted down something.
Sure.
Okay, so reading is important to me as it takes me to the wonderful world of imagination, and also I have observed that it makes me fluent in a particular language. The day I read a novel, English novel, I am able to speak more fluently in English rather than otherwise. This is my observation. I don't know, what do you say about it?
I love that, and I wanna echo what you're saying. I find, and part of my reason was to relax, but also to make me smarter. Because even in my home language, when I read another author's vocabulary and their words and the way they structure a sentence, it makes me think about my own words and the way I structure my sentences. And I kind of try out some of that language in my conversations the next day. And I love that you said that, because it really does, it makes us kind of think a little bit about our own actions. So thank you for hearing that. Yeah. Okay, friends, I think it would be difficult to hear from everyone right now. So I've seen some folks holding their notebooks up to the screen like this, like that's mine. You can go ahead and share real quick like this. And teachers, I would encourage you to also maybe take a screenshot with your computer, take a photo of these, because this is a good record of why do we read, right? So, and it's okay if not everyone has theirs done yet, because I think this is a good lesson to think about in class. It would be a great bulletin board to make, or a great sort of way to bring our schools together of why we all read. I bet we have a lot of reasons in common. My friends, let's reflect on these goals. The first goal we talked about was why reading is important. I want to move on to the second, which is what should I read? Because I think a lot of times as students, you get a lot of messages about what you should be reading. You might, let's think for a moment about what we read here. You might be the type of person who reads a how-to book. I've got a how-to book here on Starter Guide to Minecraft. Now, I don't play Minecraft. I know that some of you might play Minecraft. Give me a thumbs up if you know what Minecraft is. I'm going to see a lot of thumbs up here. And so these are how-to books. And so for me, sometimes reading is to learn something new, like how to play Minecraft, right? Magazine articles. Some of you might be reading magazine articles. I love magazine articles. They're short. They're full of information on a topic that interests me. I can skip around a little bit. I don't have to read this one, and I can read this one. I love magazine articles. Graphic novels. How many of you are graphic novel fans? You might know Dog Man. You might know some of these. You might love graphic novels because they have these really beautiful pictures in them. That might be the thing that you like to read. Let's see what else we have here. Favorite books. Okay, this is my daughter. My daughter is a grade 4 student. Do you know Heidi Heckelbeck books? Heidi Heckelbeck is a series that my daughter has always loved since she was in grade 1. She read them all in grade 1 and grade 2. Guess what? As a 4th grader, she goes back to these books all the time and she rereads them. How many of you like to reread a favorite book ever? Some of you might be the type of kids who love to reread. Yeah. How many of you like to read recommended books? You like for your friends to tell you what they're reading, and your classmates to say, hey, this was a great book, you should read this. And along with recommendations, you might listen to your teacher and your librarian recommendations. Your librarian might say, hey, Fudgemania, you should look at Judy Blume books. This is a great book to read. And your parents might say, hey, you need to be reading the books I was reading when I was a kid. Let me show you what those are. Some of you might also have assigned reading where your teachers say, everyone must read this book. We're going to study it as a class, right? And that's okay. That's part of our reading life, right? And many of you might also enjoy nonfiction topics. I think of this as a very big nonfiction topic book. Do you know what the world record books are? Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up here. These are really popular in our school, and it's nonfiction. It's all about things that people have done, you know, who's broken the world record, who is the best tennis player, or the most international hat tricks, the most runs scored in ODIs, lots of interesting information like this. That's all nonfiction. You're learning new things. So think about what you normally read when you yeah. There's some more. I want to ask you, are any of these books better than others? You might say, yes, I think one book is the best of all of these. Or you might say, no, they're all really good. Some of these books have won awards. Some of these books are funny and parents don't like them. Some of these books are really short, and some of these books are really long. Some of these books are classics that your parents read when they were young, that I read when I was really young. And some of these are modern classics that you have read and probably your children will read eventually. My own favorite book is not on here. I loved reading Nancy Drew books when I was younger. Those were my favorite books. And I only read Nancy Drew books. Think about the books you read. Why are they good? Why do you go back to them? And why are some of these other books still good? Because guess what? These are all really popular books. So even though they might not be good to you, they're pretty good around the world, and other kids are reading them and they like them for a reason, right? So we have to think that just because we're not reading them doesn't mean they're not good for us yet. Let's talk a little bit about what is good for us with some just right books, my friends. Ms. Mompton, ma'am, I think that you probably have taught them some rules about finding just right books. And I want to sort of reaffirm what Mom to Ma'am has been teaching you, that finding a just right book means it's a book that you can read, you understand it, and there are going to be some challenging words in it that are going to push you, but it's not so hard. It's a just right book. Do you know the story Goldilocks and the Three Chairs? Or the Three Bears? Not the Three Chairs. She tries out 3 chairs. She tries out 3 bowls of pudding. She always finds the one that's just right. And that's kind of what we have to do as readers. Easy books like my daughter, where's her book? This book she goes back to all the time. But you know what? It's allowing her to do something. It's allowing her to be comfortable with the story. It's allowing her to practice her dialogue, her inflection with her voice. It's allowing her to practice the literacy skills because she doesn't have to think about the words she's reading. Is it challenging her in some ways? Yes. Is it challenging her vocabulary? No. No. So if she graduates to a different book, such as this one, this is going to challenge her in many ways. Right now, it might be too hard for her. If she opens it, she might be able to read all of these words, but she might not fully understand what she's reading. And it's important that you're understanding what you're reading, right? So if you gave me a big textbook that doctors use to study when they're taking their medical school, I could read those words, but I'm going to tell you, I could not understand it. That is not what I'm good at. That's not what I know. It would take me many, many, many times of rereading it to understand it. That's too hard for me. I'm an adult. There are definitely books that are too hard for me. The other thing I want you to remember when you're finding just right books is right down here on the far left corner, variety. I want you to write that word down, variety. V-A-R-I-E-T-Y. Your school and your libraries have many, many, many types of books. You've just seen some of the books I have in our library that you also recognize. If you are a kid that always reads this, you need to be trying a new stuff too. If you're a kid that always reads this, good, and try something new. Go away from graphic novels just for a day and try them out. And I say try them out, and I'm going to tell you what my rule is in my house as a parent, which is different than my library rule. But my rule as a mom is that my children, my daughter and son, when they're trying out a book, they have to give it 20 minutes. Remember that magic 20-minute number. They have to give it 20 minutes before they say, we don't want to read it anymore. Because a lot of times kids will read one page and they'll say, I don't want it. And that's not really trying it out. Thinking about a plate of food, taking a tiny bite on your tongue doesn't really mean you're trying it. Trying a few bites means you're trying it, right? So we really want you to be knowing that reading only graphic novels means that you're missing out on this whole world of other books, right? We saw on the last slide, all those other books that are super popular, they're still out there and they're waiting for you to try them, right? So let's think for a moment here. What should you read? What might a just right book mean for someone who's learning to read? This is a just right book for someone who's learning to read. Elephant and Piggy. Do you know these characters? I love Mo Willems. Oh my goodness. If you've never read an Elephant and Piggy book, I highly suggest these books. Very easy text, my friends. For someone learning to read, this is a very good book. I'm going to tell you a secret. My fifth graders love these books too. They love to read them and act them out. Okay. What does a just right book mean for someone who only reads graphic novels? Well, it might mean picking up a different book sometimes, balancing that graphic novel. Go ahead, take the graphic novel, but take something else too, right? And what does a just right book mean for someone who doesn't really enjoy reading? We have lots of students who just say, I don't like to read. For them, it means finding the perfect book. And that perfect book might be a picture book. It might be a magazine. It might be going through the Guinness Book of World Records, right? We have to figure that out a little bit. What does a just right book mean for you? Think about yourself as a reader. If you're like my daughter, who likes to reread books, books that are really easy for her, what does it mean for her when she's shopping for just right books? She can still do that, but she needs to be challenging herself with harder books. If you're like a student who only reads Dogman, still do that and challenge yourself with other genres, right? So we're going to stop. We're going to get our notebook for a moment. We're going to get our pen. And I want you to think for a few moments. What might a just right book look like in your reading life? Okay, pencils up. Let's begin. I need to confess here that this is a really tough thing for me to do. And I bet the adults on these screens are probably having a harder time than the students are. Because here's the thing, I'm old, I have reading habits, I know what I like, and I know what I don't like. And for me, if I'm gonna challenge myself as a reader with what to read, then a just right book means that I need to step out of my comfort zone and read some books that I'm not comfortable with, because that's going to make me a better reader. I love a fiction book. I don't like scary books and I don't like science fiction. And to be a strong reader, I should probably be reading some of those books as well, right? So hold your notebooks up to the screens. Show me what you wrote and I'll show you what I wrote. I see laughing on someone's, that's good. Yeah. This is a hard thing to think about, my friends. And if adults struggle, then you might be able to help the adults and say, hey, let me give you some recommendations, right?
I would like to add on here.
Yes.
New places also.
Yeah.
New places. Reading about new places.
It is. It's very difficult to do, isn't it? And we work with books every day, right? So if we're having a hard time, students are probably also going to need to give us a hand with that. All right, friends, thank you for sharing those. We only have about, looks like maybe 15 minutes left at most. So I want to kind of speed through this last part because this is, I think, one of the most important parts of today's session, and it's how you can own your reading life. Think about the things you own. You might own your water bottle. You might own your backpack, right? What does it mean to own something? Well, it means it's yours. It means you take care of it. It means if it's dirty, you make sure it gets cleaned. It means if it's broken, you make sure it gets fixed. If you can't fix it, you got to replace it, right? You're in charge of it when you own it, right? And that's what you're going to do. You're going to own your reading life. It's your reading life. It's not someone else's. It's for you. Your reading life is going to be different than my reading life. So let's think this through a little bit. What does your reading life look like? Are you consistent? That means, do you read every day? And yes, that even means on weekends, right? Your teachers have you read in school. They're trying to build those habits. You should also be reading at home. Are you reading that just right balance? It's that Goldilocks rule and reading widely, reading nonfiction and reading fiction, reading science fiction and reading historical fiction. And is it enjoyable? Are you making it a fun part of the day? Are you giving books a chance? And are you abandoning books that don't work for you? That's okay to do. It's your reading life, right? Think about that for a minute. Is your reading life enjoyable? For some students, they say, oh, I have to go read. Fine. And for some students, you can't get the books out of their hands because they're reading so much. What makes it enjoyable? What would make it enjoyable for you? Maybe it's where you're reading. Maybe it's who you're reading with. There are a lot of things that make reading challenging. And I would say that for students and adults, me too, these challenges are real. Teachers, I would suggest you take a screenshot of this because we're not going to fill in the solution side, but I think this is a really great activity for you to do with students, for you to print a worksheet, have them fill in their own activity here. We have things that go on after school. As a teacher, I have meetings after school. I have classes I'm taking after school. There are things, I have dinner to cook. So we have things that take our attention after school. And it's easy for me to say, oh, I don't have time to read right now. I need to do this. Students, you might say, I don't have time to read right now. I need to be working on my math. I need to be watching my television. I need to be playing outside. Everything's important. All of those things are important. But that's a challenge we have to think. If that's what's stopping you from reading, what's a solution? The next one is reading for others. Sometimes your parents, let me see if I have a good book here for you. Oh, I do right here. Your parents might bring a book that you've never heard of before and they say, I want you to read this. Do you think you're going to want to read it if you've never heard of it before? Probably not, right? So reading for others can sometimes be a challenge. You might say, I don't want to read that. I want to read Dog Man. I want to read Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I don't want to read this. There are also distractions, really exciting things going on in your world, right? If it's raining heavily and there are big puddles to go stomp in, that's going to be way more appealing than reading a book sometimes, right? Sometimes kids don't know what to read. Actually, I would say a lot of times kids don't know what to read, or they don't have books to read. Those are also challenges. How are you supposed to read if you don't have books near you? I don't know. How are you supposed to read if you don't know what to read next? How can you overcome that challenge? What's a solution? Think about those things. And teachers, I would highly recommend that you have discussions with students about this so that instead of having the excuses, they have the solutions so that they're not stuck, not able to read. So my big thing, and students and teachers, I hope this is a big part of this, is to own your reading life, you need to make a plan. A goal without a plan is just a wish. So if you say, you know what, I like what I heard from Miss Geyer today. I'm going to read 20 minutes a day. And that's all you say. That's a goal. That's a wish. It's got no plan, does it? You need to be making a plan. They help guide us. They help us prepare, and they help us reflect. So it's like a roadmap. If you're getting ready to go somewhere, you need to know where you're going. How are you going to read for 20 minutes a day? Are you going to do it at bedtime? Are you going to do it in the morning? Are you going to do it on the bus? Are you going to do it while you eat your snack? Prepare for it. What are you going to read? If you sit down to read for 20 minutes and you don't have a book near you, that's going to be very hard to read for 20 minutes, isn't it? You need to prepare. You need to pack your bag. You need to get your books. Okay, I'm going to have this one there. I'm going to have this one, and I'm going to have the one my mom wants me to read. All of these are going to be here so that I have something to read for 20 minutes. I would say most of your teachers keep a stack of books on their nightstand next to their bed. And that's my pile. So I can never can say I don't have anything to read next. I have probably 10 books that I could be reading next. And then they let us reflect. After you come back from a vacation, you think about that vacation. You go, oh, that was so fun when we went into the beach, into the waters. Or, oh, that was so fun when we toured that monument. When you read a book, you reflect, you go, oh, I love the message of this book. I think every kid in first and second grade should read this book, right? I want to find more like this. I'm going to go ask Mom to Ma'am where I can find more books like this. And then that helps make your next plans, right? So let's look at our next bit here. Think about how you can own your reading life. There are many goals. I want you to think about why you're reading. I want you to consider yourself a reader. Even if you say, I don't like reading, guess what? You might not like reading, but you're a reader, right? I don't like to go on runs. I tell you what, that's my least favorite exercise. But if I have to run, can I run? Yeah, I know how to run. You might want to say, I'm going to read daily. Owning my reading life means reading daily. It means setting goals for yourself. It means reading for information, reading books from different genres, and it means recommending books to others. That's a big part of it. Thinking about who you might read with. And then this last one is what I think is one of the most important things, reflecting on your ups and downs. Every reader has ups and downs. Every reader, when they finish a book, they can go back in that book and say, that was a really hard book for me to start, or that was an easy book for me to start, but I didn't have time because of this. We all have those, and think about those and how that we can change our reading habits by reflecting on those. Once you have a goal, you need to be thinking about getting some help with that goal, okay? If I'm gonna say I'm gonna learn how to ride a bike, I need to get a bike. I don't know where to shop for a bike in Delhi. I need to ask some friends, right? If you're saying you're going to read for 20 minutes a day, or you want to read many different genres, You need to talk to people, talk to a friend and say, hey, do you want to do a 40-book challenge with me? Or hey, do you want to, let's read a science fiction book together because I don't really like them and you do, right? Make those plans. Do you know who else can help you? Your teachers. Your teachers can help you and they can help uphold some of those plans for you. My friends, in a moment, we're going to think about our own goal. We're going to think about the tools we need, and we're going to think about the people who can help us. And you're going to be jotting these down in a moment. But I'm telling you this now because this next slide is going to walk through some different goals that we might have. And I want you to have those in your mind. So some different goals students might have here. You might say, I want to read 5 books this month. I want to always be ready to read. That's my goal. I want to read with a family member each night. I want to read 20 minutes a day or 1 book a week. Once you have those goals, then you think about those tools. It's packing that bag, right? You might need a reading log, a book challenge. You might need your teachers to have a class challenge. You might say, ooh, let's do a contest. You might want a calendar so you can mark your reading time each day or a schedule. You need some books probably. You might even want a little timer. I keep a timer. Oops, I'm gonna slide some things around here. I keep a timer on my desk. Something like this is easy to use, right? We can keep time of what we're doing, right? Lots of options here. Once you have those tools, be thinking about the people who will help you. You've got lots of people. And I even have a pet up here because a lot of my students love to read to their pets. There's lots of people in your world who can help you and support you with reading. And I'll bet you if you went to anyone and said, I want to have a reading habit, better reading habits, I bet you they're going to say yes. I can't think of anyone who would say, I'm not going to help you, right? People want that to happen. So people are going to help you. So we're going to go back to this slide in a moment. We're going to stop and jot in your notebooks. What is your goal? What tools do you need and what people can help you? And in my notebook, I would even write those little clouds like we have. So goal, tools, people, like this. And then I might write down the answers to that. What goals do I have? What tools do I need? And what people can help me? I'm going to go back 1 slide so that you can see some of the ideas here because I think that's helpful. So choose 1 goal or 2. All right, I see some folks have written theirs down and they're showing it to us. I'll hold mine up here too. Students, while you're continuing to work on this, so students, you keep working because this is actually a really hard thing to work on. Teachers, I'm going to move us forward because I have some things for you. So teachers, some things that are going to help us engage with students in our books, in our reading life and owning that reading life. All libraries should have a mix of books appropriate to the grade levels they teach. They should be both easy and complex. I think books like Mo Willems' Elephant and Piggie books should be in every classroom, every grade level in an elementary school because everyone enjoys these. I've listed 2 columns of authors over here that I just find to be kind of phenomenal authors. And I highly recommend, again, a screenshot of this or take a photo, or I can send this to Mom to Ma'am afterwards and she can have this page for you. These are authors that we have found in our library to be very engaging and have really quality works of literature. Students should be hearing read alouds daily. in the classroom. And they can be short read alouds or they can be parts of longer novels. Reading above their grade level, we say by 1 or 2 grade levels, is an important thing because it exposes them to vocabulary they might not normally be reading. And please don't limit students by their reading levels. So my daughter is, she's a higher reading level than this. It's okay that she's reading this. It's always going to be okay. And we want to push her in a loving way to read tougher books because that's what she's able to do. But I think a lot of times we hang on to that level in our head and really we kind of limit student choices by that. In our student notebooks, I always think, where's my notebook? I meant to bring my notebook today. I have my own reading notebook at my house. I have a book club that I'm in, and I keep the very front pages are books that I hear about that I want to read. And so when your class is sharing recommendations, have your students pull out that notebook on their reading list and write down the books that they hear their peers talking about. That could be time every week that we think, hey, what books did you see in the library today that you want to read? And school-wide, share your reading. We've had teachers in one of the schools I worked at, outside of every classroom door, it said, you know, Miss Wendy is reading, and it had a picture of the book cover on it, so that students see that they're not the only readers. It's not the adults telling them what to read. We're all doing the reading too, even though they're not going to read the same books I'm reading. It just shows that it kind of makes that sort of community a little bit tighter. These authors are great. I think classrooms can have wish lists too. In our library, we have little sheets of paper where kids can write down, we wish the library had, and they write the name of the book and give it to me. And I see if we can find those books if they fit our collection policy. The next sheet is also for our teachers here. Students, you're welcome to listen, of course. I am going to highly, highly, highly recommend, if you've not read it, Donna Lynn Miller's book, The Book Whisperer. I read this years ago, and it phenomenally changed the way I taught reading. And this was when I was just a classroom teacher. I think it'd be an excellent book club, book study for your teachers to do. It really reshapes your thinking about what reading can look like. Mr. Shu reads. He does a great blog where he does a lot of book talks. And so students can look at it too, but it's definitely a place for teachers to go to. Ms. Mamta, ma'am, are you guys using Get Epic at your school, Epic Reading? Yeah? Okay, good. I was gonna say, if you're not using it, please use it. They did.
Even I introduced this presentation reading too.
Good. Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Okay. Good. So that's something I don't even need to discuss, is the Epic and Biblionasium. I don't know if you're, that's something that you use. We used to use it. I haven't used it in a while, but it's a way for, it's a platform for students to share their reading. I saw you use Padlet in your other one. I think that's a great way to have a school-wide book recommendation Padlet, kind of bringing some life into it. So students, are you done with your reading goals? Yes. Do you want to share those goals on screen here? Show me what you have. I'm seeing some good goals. Read 5 books a month. That's a great goal. To read more. I think that's an excellent goal. Yeah. At least 30 pages a night, 1 book a month. Excellent goals. Be ready to read. Yeah, that's sometimes for me, that's the hardest thing. Look at that. One of my tools was putting the battery in my reading light. If I do that, then I'll be able to do my goal. I just have to go get that battery. So may I see yours as far? Can you move it closer, Sume? There we go. Oh, nice. Very nice. Oh, and I'm seeing lots of ways you're typing those tools. I like that. My friends, you all have good goals, and I think that you're going to be amazing. You're probably already amazing readers, and you're going to just be strengthened by this phenomenally. I want to end by saying a big thank you, a note of gratitude to your principal, to Ms. Mamta ma'am, to the faculty at your school. Your teachers are very excited to be doing some great reading with you, especially this week. To the students here for joining me, thank you for what a lovely welcome. And to everyone involved in the BBPS National Reading Week conveners. So thank you very much for inviting me here today. I think I went over time.
Ma'am, it was indeed a very, very interesting session. In the beginning, I must say I was quite intrigued with the way you have carried out and given us solutions. It will answer many of our queries. But I think there are some questions that are popping up in the minds of our students and teachers as well. I would, if you don't mind, ma'am, may I request Sona ma'am to put forth her question?
Yes, yes.
Sona ma'am, please.
Sure, ma'am. First of all, good afternoon, ma'am. It is our immense pleasure to have you here. We want to thank you for such an insightful session. I have a question for you. Basically, I have two. First one is, which is the first book you remember reading? And second one is a more hypothetical one. What if a student is about to commence his or her reading journey? Which books would you recommend him or her, or which are the best books to go for? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I remember vividly finishing the first book I ever finished. I was in first grade, I think, and I read, it was a Cam Jansen mystery. And I remember I was sitting in the back of my parents' car, and I think I was waiting on my dad was in a store. And I remember finishing it and saying, oh my gosh, I've just finished my first chapter book, you know, just being very proud of myself. And I loved that mystery. I loved that setup of it. I loved the intrigue. And I then read another Cam Jansen book, right? And I think that kind of sort of goes to the other idea of, if students are getting ready to become readers, any series of books are going to be, they're going to answer that problem of what to read next. Because if they can get hooked on one character in that series, they're going to want to follow them through. Those beginner series, we have Cynthia Rylant is an author who does a lot of beginning series books. Mr. Putter and Tabby, Annie and Snowball, those sorts of books. There's also books like Brownie and Pearl and Elephant and Piggy. I think that our students enjoy following characters through many scenarios like that, and that's a key way to kind of engage them and get them wanting to read more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Elephant and Piggy gets a thumbs up from me as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for answering that question. I now request Ms. Dhanya ma'am to ask a question.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful session. I have taken a lots of notes for me to use. And I have this question that as an in charge of reading club, how can I encourage more active participation and get the best of students' imagination?
And what club is this?
Reading club. We take primary reading club class.
Yeah, you know, I just saw, I'm going to pull a book off my shelf over here. I was looking through some of my books today. I think that kids like to be engaged in books. Not only, I think of a book talk or a book club in the way that adults do it. What makes it fun for me is the stories that get told around the book, not necessarily talking about the book. And I think for kids it's a very similar thing. So what are the things we're doing around the book? And I just was seeing this book on my shelf. It's called Storybook Stew. It's an older book. I don't even know if it's still in publishing, but you know, there's a new book that's coming out. It's a Harry Potter cookbook. And I think, oh man, if I were a kid and my teachers were like, we're going to make magic wand breadsticks today, I'd be like, I'm reading that book. Tell me how to read that. And I think that when we're able to reach them through different ways like that, we're able to engage them on a different level of that reading. And book clubs are super important to talk about reading and enforce literacy skills, but I think you're right, is that engaging part that's the key to getting good readers. I haven't been in book clubs in years, and I'm now in book clubs. I still think I'm a good reader, and it's because I'm engaging with my books in different ways as readers. Hope that helps.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for the question, and thank you, ma'am, for answering it. Ma'am, I too have a question for you. Recently, Enid Blyton was criticized for his unchallenging way of writing. The writings were somewhere called, they were racist ideas that, so I would like to ask you, do you recommend books by Enid Blyton? Should we keep it in the library, school library?
I think there's a fine line that we have to balance with that. I know that Enid Blyton is very popular, especially in India. And with, I know that parents of our students think fondly of those books. Now, things were different 20 years ago. I think we have to think about librarians. If a book we have hurts a culture of people, then we have a responsibility. If it's got misinformation, we have a responsibility of making sure students know that that doesn't belong there. Similarly, Dr. Seuss was, the Dr. Seuss organization went under fire because they recommended 3 books be pulled from the collection because of racist imagery and racist words. At our school, we quickly chose to pull those 3 books. Now, we didn't pull the whole collection. There are still Dr. Seuss books in our picture book section for sure, because they're still really, he's a great writer and we should still celebrate his writings. What we did is we pulled those books and we gave them to our upper school with a note printed in the front for them to study when they do race relations and things like that. So we felt like we could still use that literature to inform and to help redirect some of the thinking. It's no longer in our elementary library. And I think that that's a, as teachers and as principals and as librarians and as parents, we have to think about, are those the books we want our students to read? Is that the person we want them to be? I hope that answers it. I won't tell you.
It was very well said, ma'am. It was very well said. Thoughtful for us. We need to be really responsible of what we are giving to our students. Ma'am, I would like, 2 of my students have questions. I would quickly move on to Darsh. Darsh, please ask your question.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Darsh Yadav. Thank you for this wonderful session and for giving me an opportunity to ask a question. As you are so much into reading, I just want to ask that when you are reading a story with twists and turns like stories by Nancy Drew, so do you already get to know what's going to happen in the end, or you are just as curious as we are?
I love that question. So Darsh, here's my secret. I'm a terrible reader because I like to peek ahead sometimes. And I always want kids to not do that. But when I'm reading a story and there's lots of twists and turns and I'm excited or I'm scared and I just have to know what's happening, I sometimes have to peek one page ahead, because that allows me to relax and say, whew, okay, I can relax now. I know they're going to be okay. And I'll go back and read those pages. I love that question. And you caught me.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering my question.
Thank you, Darsh.
Thank you, ma'am. I would now request Rudraksh to ask his question.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Rudraksh Chatterjee. It's my pleasure that I could ask you a question. Ma'am, I would like to know what attracts you to a book, the cover, blurb, or recommendation from others. Thank you.
Wow. You have given 3 options that I use all of them. So I'm going to show you something, Rudraksh. Where is it? This book I bought on the computer. The cover did not look like this. I bought it because the blurb and the recommendation were good. But when I look at this cover, you can hardly see it. It's also black. When I look at this cover, it does not look interesting to me. I've had a really hard time trying to pick up this book to read it. Okay. Now, there are other books. I'm going to see if I have one over here. I wonder if I have one on my shelf. I don't know. But for sure, there are other books. I don't have one right here next to me, but there are other books that definitely I only pick up because the cover looks good. And we always say, don't judge a book by its cover, but guess what everyone does? We judge books by their cover, right? So I definitely have picked up books like that. And I've sometimes been really disappointed. Maybe it's not a good book. Maybe it's something different than what I was expecting. And I've been really excited sometimes, right? I'll tell you my my favorite way to know what to read next is recommendations from my friends. So we choose our friends because we have things in common with them, right? And I know that my friend Marina, who works in our school, reads really good books. So when she comes to me and says, oh, I just read this great book, I couldn't put it down, then guess what? I immediately write on my list that title, right? I don't even ask her what the book's about because I know that she has a similar taste to me, and I know that I'll just give it a try myself, right? So when you find a good friend that's like a reading buddy like that, I think that that's a pretty magical relationship, because then you can just say, hey, what are you reading? Tell me a good book. And they will give you a list of good books, and you can do the same for them. So I think I use all three, but my favorite is using the recommendations from friends and not the recommendations from online, because that's proven to not be very successful for me.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for patiently answering all our students, ma'am. Thank you, and needless to say, what a wonderful session it was. I hope that we have many more such sessions in future. And thank you all my dear students for your keen participation and colorful flags.
I know, those flags are great.
We have a token of love for you, Miss Wendy, from our little avid readers. And I request all to be ready for a group photograph. It is a pleasure to see everybody together in one frame. These are desperate times and desperate measures, and definitely this webinar, everybody coming into one frame, was a great experience.
I love it.
Ma'am, on behalf of Bal Bharti Parivar, I would begin by thanking Ms. Wendy Geyer, who has kindly taken her time off for this webinar. Her wonderful inputs have enthused us all for exploring the wonderful world of books a little more. It is also the occasion to appreciate and acknowledge the wisdom and guidance provided by the head of our Bal Bharti Noida Parivar, our principal, Ms. Asha Prabhakar, and the entire team behind this webinar to make this cause a success. Also, a big thank you to my dear students for their cooperation and vivacious participation. Let me say thank you all. But this is not the end. It is just a beginning of a new chapter of our reading journey. We look forward to meet you all soon. Bye-bye.